And I was thinking about this talk. I've been thinking about this for a long time because friendship is a big topic. And I seriously have been just like typing out notes and thoughts for 2 weeks, not 2 weeks straight, time here and there. And I went up to my wife the other day and I was like, oh, check this out. This is what I've been thinking about with friendship. And she's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you can also talk about this, this, and this. And what I realized in that is that the guys have a big challenge tonight because we don't get relationships and friendships as well as females do. Okay, it's like obvious for females. It's like completely self-evident, and I realized that once again when I was talking to Katie because she just totally told me what I should talk about, which is awesome. So that's a challenge for the guys, all right, tonight. So I've been thinking about friendship a lot lately because of all of you. And here's why. Since this spring especially, I've had a lot of one-on-one conversations with teens, with you, with your peers. And some key lines have really come up that have made me question what friendship is. Lines like, I don't feel wanted by my friends. I realized that we were just using each other. I thought I had friends, but then they stabbed me in the back. I feel like my friendships are empty. How do you make them deeper? Those are pretty serious questions, I would say. So, after hearing all of these teens talk about this, my question began to shift from what is friendship to, is friendship worth risking? If these are the questions and concerns and doubts that are coming forward, like, I don't even know if I'm wanted by my friends. It's like, wow, is friendship even worth the risk if I don't know if I'm wanted by my friends? Because friendship, as we know, friendship's much more than hanging out or than laughing with people. It's more than video games, it's more than sports, it's more than band, it's more than school. And here's what I think friendship's really rooted in, and it's not going to be a shocker. Okay? I think it's rooted in love. And I'm not talking about sexual, erotic love or anything like that. I'm really talking about love in the deepest sense, which is willing the good of the other, willing the good of your friend, really wanting what's absolutely best for your friend to the point where you're willing to sacrifice for it. All right? That's not easy because it's much easier to be superficial and just hang out. It's really a lot easier to not risk self-gift. Self-gift, really giving yourself for the good of the other person. That's hard. It's hard to risk giving yourself because it demands that you don't demand anything in return. Okay, here's an example. I am married to my best friend, Katie. It's pretty cool. Now, we have a house and we have food in our house that demands eating on it dishes. Okay? So I have to do dishes sometimes. Now, I can approach doing dishes one of 3 ways, all right? Follow me on this. I can either approach dishes like, I'll do these dishes, maybe Katie will mow the lawn for me. Okay, that's called like a business partnership, right? Like, here's what I'll do. You do this? Okay. Or I could approach doing dishes totally to use her. Here's how. I'll do these dishes so that Katie will recognize how awesome and studly I am as a husband. I want her recognition and affirmation. Okay? I would be then doing the dishes or giving the gift of doing dishes just to use her for affirmation. Okay? This is kind of a silly example, but it's pretty day to day. Or I could, out of love with my wife, go downstairs while she's busy putting the kids in bed or whatever, resting on the couch, reading emails. I could go out to the kitchen and with no desire, selfish desire, simply do the dishes because I love my wife and I want her to have a few minutes of not doing dishes. Okay? And not care if she recognizes me or not for doing those dishes. Alright? That is self-gift. Alright? And it's not easy. It's a risk. It's a risk because you're open and vulnerable and sacrificing and loving all for the good of the other person and not for your own gain. A friendship, a true friendship, is the place of mutual self-gift, where you're both truly giving yourself for the other person. And most human relationships suffer because we don't give, and more often than not, we're in it for ourselves. We take. Okay, some really basic examples. Okay, this is kind of like an examination of conscience night. I really want you all to be thinking about your friendships. All right, this one blew me away. I was reading a book this summer. We're talking about use. Okay, using each other. I don't know how many times I've done this one. Okay, someone, a friend, comes up to you and says at the beginning of the week, "Hey, I'm going to be having this gathering at my house this weekend. Do you want to come?" Yeah, maybe. I might come. I'll think about it. Okay, and what I'm really saying there is, yes, unless I get a better offer in the meantime. I'm going to use your invitation so that I don't get stuck doing nothing and being at home with my parents on Saturday. See that? That's pretty subtle use, okay? And it's something that we commonly do. So then you flake out at the last minute because you get the better offer, and you left that person hanging because you were using them all week. All right, that's one example. Another example would be just like the whole friends with benefits culture that we live in, just like consumerism sort of thing. Like, I'm going to shop around and find the right kind of friend who can get me a good grade in math class. I'll be that person's friend for about a year until that math class is over, and then I'll find the next friend who can help me get a good grade in math. Okay, that's the sort of like consumerism, shopping around way of using people. We could talk a lot about pornography, but we'll leave that word out there. That's kind of like a big deal in terms of using people and objectifying and controlling and manipulating. One other thing that I was thinking about is gossip, and how we will so often, even our friends, right? We will highlight that person's failure to other people. We'll use that person's failures to kind of uplift ourselves, or to justify a position. Well, this person's doing this, right? So, really, dang it, really subtle ways of using and not giving. All right, so that's one risk to friendship, true self-give. The second one that I would bring up is, I think my deepest friendships are the people that I ask my serious questions about life to. Like, the absolute deepest questions in my heart. The deepest questions I have about life. That's part of how I understand who my real friends are. Those people I ask those questions to, those are my real friends. And that's a pretty vulnerable position to be in, right? Because we don't just share those questions with anyone. Because once you share those questions, you're putting yourself out there in the open. This is what he's really thinking about. This is what he's really struggling with. I only ask those questions to a few people in my life, my real friends who I really trust, who I know really care about me and really love me. That's a big risk, asking your questions to someone. Now, I do want to make a point here real quick about technology, because I think that some of our struggle nowadays is that we're actually afraid to enter into deep friendships because a lot of our communication happens over these various interfaces, okay? One quick example about this. My friend is a youth minister in Denver, Colorado. He went up to a teen who he knew that this girl was having a lot of problems at home with her parents. And he went up after a youth night and said, "Hey, how are things going at home?" Like, he asked her straight up because he knew what was going on. They talked before. And she said, "Oh, I'm fine, nothing, and just kind of like walked away. An hour later, after the youth night, he got a Facebook message with this like dump out of all of this stuff that had been going on. Okay? The point to be made there is it's a whole lot different to communicate with each other, to talk to each other as friends, when you're staring a person face to face, eye to eye, live, right? Because we often, nowadays, we're hiding behind so many interfaces, so many different mediums. True friendship happens live, in the flesh. It's real. It's not just something that happens over the internet. All right, one last risk. I think that true friendships are ones that call you on to greatness. True friendships are ones that call you on to greatness, okay? By this, I mean, the risk here is, well, I'm afraid to tell this person, my friend, that he's in the wrong. He's doing the wrong thing. He's going down the wrong path. And so we let that person kind of slide because I would be risking my reputation. That's too big of a risk for me. Okay. 2 examples of this. I have an accountability partner. I've had him since college. We're like best friends. Numerous times we've had to call each other out. That is a sin, right? You should not be doing that. That takes a lot of courage in a friendship to be willing to say that, because it's a risk. I also had a friend from high school who, once we got to college, his sole purpose, every time we would communicate, we went to different schools across town. Every time we talked, for the first couple of months of school, his only goal, it seemed, was to get me wasted. That was his goal. I ended that friendship when I started to realize that. Your friendships either call you on or they lead you down a path of sin. It's either moving in one direction toward Christ or it's going the other way because it's complacent or leading you into sin. All right, it's really pretty simple. I would argue tonight that friendship is worth the risk. All of these risks. I think it's worth it because we were meant to be in communion with God and with one another. There's a line from Gaudium et Spes, which is a document from Vatican II. I love this line. Katie's going to put it up on the screen. Man, who is the only creature on earth which God willed for itself, cannot fully find himself except through a sincere gift of self. Brothers and sisters, we've been created for gift. We've been created for others. But we know from our experience that a lot of our human friendships have failed us, and that we have failed our friends in many ways. So the question is, what do we do? What do we do about this? What's happened in my life, and I think a lot of your lives, is that we've started to follow someone who has done this perfectly. We've started to follow someone who is true love himself. Perfect love, who poured out everything. Poured out everything. But isn't it risky to love Christ? This was Pope Benedict's question, his first Mass as Pope. Isn't it too risky to love Christ? Check this quote out. Are we not perhaps all afraid in some way? If we let Christ enter fully into our lives, if we open ourselves totally to Him, are we not afraid that He might take something away from us? Are we not perhaps afraid to give up something significant, something unique, something that makes life so beautiful? Do we not then risk ending up diminished and deprived of our freedom? This is the Pope's question about entering into a relationship with Christ. Doesn't it cost me too much? Isn't it too risky? All right, I was thinking about this quote in light of the story of Zacchaeus. Here's that story from Luke's Gospel. At that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now a man there named Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man. He was seeking to see who Jesus was, but he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." and he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they saw this, they began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor. And if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a descendant of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what is lost." Brothers and sisters, let's enter into this story. Where are you in this story? Okay, I was thinking about this. Short people, like kids, if they're in a crowd and they want to see what's going on, it's not hard for them to kind of snake through and get to the front of the line, right? You've seen this happen before. It's not that hard. They can do it. I would maybe argue that Zacchaeus could have done that in this story. But what does he do? He's afraid to risk it. He's afraid to get too close. So he runs off in the distance and climbs a tree so he can see. All right? How often do we do this? Where are you in this story? Are you stuck back in the crowd, kind of disinterested? Are you pushing your way to the front because you want to encounter this Jesus who will satisfy your every desire? Or do you want to kind of play it safe? You're a little curious about this. You climb a tree, you kind of look at it from a distance, you kind of wait. All right? Brothers and sisters, it's that question of honesty. I can't answer this question for you. I don't know where you are. There are people in this room who are in all of those different positions with regard to Jesus. But the most important thing is that it didn't matter where Zacchaeus went, because Jesus went to him. Jesus seeks us out. He saves us, we the lost. He came to seek and to save the lost. This is the whole point of the gospel, is that this God of love became flesh, took on flesh, and died on a cross for all of us, the ultimate act of friendship. This is what friendship is about. Total self-gift, surrender, on the cross, pouring himself out for you and for me. Pope Benedict continues, if we let Christ into our lives, we lose nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing of what makes life free, beautiful, and great. Only in this friendship are the doors of life opened wide. Only in this friendship is the great potential of human existence truly revealed. Only in this friendship do we experience beauty and liberation. And so today, with great strength and great conviction, on the basis of a long personal experience of life, I say to you, dear young people, do not be afraid of Christ. He takes nothing away and gives you everything. When we give ourselves to him, we receive 100-fold in return. Yes, open wide the doors to Christ, and you will find true life. Brothers and sisters, this is the true friendship that we long for. It's the only friendship that we will encounter in this world that doesn't fail to satisfy our deepest longings. He doesn't use us. He receives what we have to offer, however meager that might be, and he gives us so much in return. Our relationship with Christ makes us new. It gives us a decisive direction for our lives. And he can be found. And he finds you. He finds you through the church, through the sacraments, through his sacred word, and through his witnesses. Brothers and sisters, I follow Christ because he's been good to me. He has transformed my life, and he made me new. If we follow Christ, we will not be disappointed. We will not be disappointed. I heard this quote earlier this week. First we decide on what we want in life, then we choose our friends because they're the ones who want what we want in life. We decide on who we want to follow, then our friendships are made new. Then self-gift makes sense because we are following, we are attentive to the one who gave himself perfectly, that we might have life and have it abundantly. Our human relationships, our human friendships, are a reflection of this fundamental relationship with Christ. If you want deep, real, and authentic relationships with each other, be deep, real, and authentic with Jesus. What's really been amazing to me is, I gave you all those quotes from teens, from your peers earlier. I don't feel wanted in my friendship. feel like this is empty and superficial? How do we go deeper? As I've been getting those questions, something else has also been happening. And it's been that more of you are seeking Christ. More of you are desiring to have your lives transformed, and you're surrendering. And it's transforming the friendships that I see happening in this room. And it's been really amazing to watch. I have a lot of hope. Because I have a lot of hope in Christ. Brothers and sisters, I just want to challenge all of you here to risk friendship. To risk friendship with Christ, and to let that direct and guide your friendships with each other. Because He takes nothing away. He satisfies our deepest needs. And I want to put this quote up from the Pope that I brought up in our session 2 weeks ago. Dear young people, do not settle for anything less than truth and love. Do not be content with anything less than Christ. This is our challenge for the year, like I mentioned before. Do not be satisfied for anything less than Christ. And one way that we're going to do that this year is through challenging each other and learning and growing in friendship in small groups. All right? Most youth nights we have time for small groups, and you've been partnered up with some of your friends and a core team member or two, and they're here to minister to you, to walk with you on this journey. Right? I want to challenge all of you here tonight to really enter into these times of small group, to go deeper with one another, to go deeper with the Lord. All right. Now, what we need to do at this point is try to figure out where we're all going to go for small groups, because there's basketball going on. All right. So let's try to figure this out. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to. All right. Here's what I want to do. Do all of you kind of know what group you're in, or do I need to list these off? Don't know? Okay. Let's do this. I want to try to get all of you out of here into your small groups as fast as possible, okay? So, gentlemen, we're going to have